So I want to set the stage for exactly what I want to show you in this particular demo. So here I have two companies that I am trying to merge. This is based on a real customer use case. So we're going to call them old money and new money. So old money is acquiring new money. Old money, West Coast based. They actually have presence in all three clouds, but we're going to focus on AWS today. Lots of on-prem data center components, but just to do the AWS side here. They have done traditional zone-based firewalls. That's how they're controlling access policies in their AWS environment. However, new money, they weren't cloud native from day one. They never had any on-prem components, so they've always been AWS native. The task here is they need to merge within just a few months, verify the security posture is correct, and it has to be done in a very, very quick time frame. So fortunately, now I don't know anything about these networks at all, and I'm going to use forward networks to figure that out. What they have given me, though, is they've given me an architecture diagram for both of them. So, okay, let's take a look. All right, well, that's not very helpful. I see the VPCs there. Not sure what a gateway load balancer is. Oh, I see the firewalls, okay. Okay, that's not really helpful understanding what this network is like at all. It just kind of shows me the high-level transit gateways, things like that. Well, maybe the new money one will be a little better. No, that's even worse. So, okay, AWS Network Firewall, I've read about that. And I see they're using some kind of inspection VPC to manage it. So not knowing anything about these networks, it would take me a really long time to figure this out. So what I want to show you is how we can use Forward to make this really, really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to the app over here. So the first thing I see is when I log in, this is the SaaS one actually hosted on AWS Marketplace. What I see here is what we've collected from this environment. So when I say collection, we are using native AWS APIs here to pull from this account. If I go over to sources, it says, okay, well, I've got the two Palos. I'm collecting from those. So using read-only credentials, I'm grabbing all the rules, all the flows, all the forwarding tables, everything there. But also, I'm collecting from their AWS environment in US West 2. And you can even see, okay, yep, there's the account ID. Please don't copy that. And it tells me that I'm collecting from this environment. Okay, great. So what I would need to do there is just tell the platform, let's just go collect. We call it a snapshot. You can see a whole history of snapshots of everything that's being done. So this takes just a minute or so to grab all of that data, just as fast as we can go out to the API and pull all of it. So what this shows you is when I pull this up, if I look at the dashboard, it's going to tell me, yep, you've got those two Palos there. That's the version it's running. But it's also going to tell me what I've got about the cloud environment. So it says you've got 14 instances, 4 VPCs, 14 subnets. In this case, no VPN or direct connects. You can get as far deep as you want to just to get some visibility of what you've got. Let's look at the inventory. It shows all of my EC2 instances here. I can actually look at anything I want to, any of the devices here. But if I just want to look at the instances, it's got that there. You can even see that snapshot's already ready and complete. So now that I've got this there, the map here shows what I've collected, AWS US West here. If I had more, you'd see a lot more. If I had on-prem, you'd see actual physical data centers. If I click on the US West region here, now it's going to show me all of my VPCs, transit gateways, if I have any internet gateway connectivity, and I can drill down as deep as I want to here to look at all of this. So let's look at, yep, this is a transit gateway here. Let's look at this security VPC. Oh, okay, so it's showing me my internet gateway, all my route tables, what's attached to them. Here, my availability zones, I can go as deep as I want to. Now I can say, well, let's just look at all of the resources. Yep, you've got the EC2 instance here. I've got that gateway load balancer that I mentioned. Oh, there's a NAT gateway too. And actually, even the Palo Alto firewall inside this region. So just from a visibility standpoint, I know exactly what I've got here and I know exactly what it is. And I can see how it changes over time. When I go back to the dashboard, you actually see instances how they've changed over time. So let's see if we can figure out something about how the traffic is going. The architecture diagram wasn't a whole lot of help. So I knew those instances right here. So let's do something simple. I know engineers have to deploy to production. So let's see how the traffic goes there, see if I can make some sense of that. So I'm going to ask the platform something really natural language. I just want to go from that engineering instance. And you can see it automatically completes it because it knows what it's got there. Now, when I click that, it's going to start to give me results right away, because at this point, I've asked a very simple, just tell me how I can get from this to, well, I don't know what yet, which is why there's 30 different results. So very open-ended. Now I can get deeper into it and say, well, now I want to go from that instance, but I also want to go to that production instance. So let's say prod1 old money. Okay, so I've asked something very simple. Just tell me how to go from here to here. I don't know anything else but the endpoints. Over here, it's going to show you exactly how it passes through. Here, hop by hop inside AWS, I'm going to show you exactly how the traffic flows, taking into account all security groups, all network ACLs, even physical, actually virtual firewalls here, something that even something like AWS Reachability Analyzer couldn't do, because now we're actually analyzing those VNFs inside the cloud. So click on the first one right here. It tells me, yep, this is the instance that I'm coming from, all the IPs, everything about that instance, any tags I have from it. The first place I go to is the subnet that it's attached to. Okay, so it tells me the subnet here. Here's what's operating on the subnet. This is the security group you have associated with it. It's permitting it through. Now, I could have asked ports, protocols, anything more specific if I want to. Just keep it simple, just connectivity. It shows me my ACLs being permitted through. Great. The next point here, it tells me the routing table I'm attached to and the actual route that I'm going to be operating on. So there is a default route pointing to this transit gateway, which you can see right here. Now, once I hit the transit gateway, it tells me what route table I'm associated with there, what the attachment point is, which is going to this security VPC. So this is where it got a little confusing for me, because it has that gateway load balancer connecting to the Palo. So it says, okay, you're hitting that, more security groups, more ACLs, hitting that gateway load balancer here. So how exactly does that work? Okay, I click on that and says, okay, you've got a load balancer here, load balancing to 2 different firewalls. And here's the firewall that it goes to. Now, there's an interesting view underlay button here. So it doesn't matter how complex your network is and how many overlays or underlays, we're going to resolve that down. So how does this gateway load balancer connect to this right here? Well, if I look at the config, it tells me that's a Geneve tunnel. I guess that's how gateway load balancers work in AWS. If I click on the view underlay, it's going to tell me, here's how that tunnel actually resolves under there. Now, of course, we can't get all the way down into how AWS physically does things, but we can see the levels of overlay, underlay, no matter what you've got there. As you keep going down, one thing you might have noticed, this firewall that it's going to shows is dropped. So right away, I know that this traffic will not make it there because I have something that's dropping the traffic. Now, it could have been a security group, it could have been an ACL, but it's going to tell me, well, this firewall is dropping the traffic because you have an ACL rule that's blocking it. I actually show you the ACL rule. I have an engineering to production rule that's dropping this. You can even go all the way into it and say, here's the actual part of the config we're going to highlight for you that is doing the traffic drop for you. So you can model very quickly, no matter where it's at, what's being allowed, what's being dropped, just by doing a very, very simple search. We can also take it to a next level, though. I could edit this in my sandbox and actually make changes on a conditional basis to the firewall in the model and see if the traffic would make it through. Or I could just say, well, let's say I did fix this firewall. What else is in the path that could or could not be a problem? I turn this button right here on, permit all mode. That's going to look at the entire path and says, yes, I know that this firewall drops it. Let's just pretend right now that you fixed it. Let's look at the entire path and see if anything else blocks or has issues. In this case, yeah, everything else looks good. There's no other security groups, no other firewalls, nothing else there. So very, very quickly, just by doing this really, really simple search, I'm able to show you now whether this is on-prem to cloud, cloud to cloud, no matter what, you're able to quickly figure this out.
So I'm asking this, and I get this is the whole point, but I just want to hear you say it. When you hit that permit all button, you virtually hit that permit all button because you're collecting all that data and you're returning back, okay, here's what would happen.
Here's what would happen. Yeah, exactly right.
That's
Yeah, I have no access to the APIs that we pull here, like the IAM permissions are only EC2 pulls. I don't have any action access or anything that could possibly write anything.
Why would it say permit all and not just the basic what's needed?
So it's telling me that, yes, this is what's needed.
I could open them all to any and they would be great. It would all work for me.
No, it's telling you what devices you would need to make changes. So let's say there were 4 firewalls that you needed to make changes. These are the 4 different
permit
devices.
all changes,
Permit
but
all.
only what's needed.
Only what's needed. It's not permit. It's not open everything.
That's misleading. It's a security part.
Yeah,
Where it says permit all. And you
Yeah,
can see it.
that's fair. Yeah, it's not permit all, but it's telling me.
Okay, so permit
fix this rule.
all things that are stopping.
All things that are stopping. Yeah, it's not turning everything over. Yeah.
Past the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything for like a like automatic remediation, not actually doing it, but showcasing what you should change, like a code change that you were just showing?
Yeah. So the next part is what you can take this is you can take this into that kind of remediation chain.
Okay.
So I could save this and put this into what we call an intent check. So I can say any one of those things that need to be working all the time. Every time I take a snapshot, tell me that it's working. And as I look through time, tell me if it's changed. So I can look at the differences between them and say, okay, under verifications, tell me before I made the change and after I made the change. Now you can implement this into Ansible, Terraform, CloudFormation, whatever engine you happen to have that will just query us via the API and say, before and after make the change, tell me if it's passed or failed. And if it's failed, you can automatically roll that back. But we're not the thing that actually does the configuration.
So that's the way you would put this into a pipeline.
Yeah, you do something like Terraform. We already have Ansible. We have Attention we work with. Terraform, we're writing the module right now for it. Yeah. So that's great for doing simple one-off kind of searches there. But I need something a little more holistic from a security perspective. So let's go over to the security tab right here, and let's look at the posture. Now, the security posture is going to take the zone-to-zone posture of my entire network and tell me exactly what it looks like. What I mean by that is if I click on the little pencil icon right here, it's going to say I've defined a couple of different zones. Now, zones can be whatever you want. They could be a collection of subnets and VRFs. They could be subnets in the cloud. They could be actual zones on firewalls, whatever they happen to be. In this case, I'm just taking the cloud subnets that these different resources live on. So I've said, okay, engineering is these, test and prod are these. It's going to spit out this matrix right here to tell me, coming from this source zone to this destination zone, tell me if things are permitted, tell me if things are blocked. So not on a simple one-to-one search basis, but here it says, okay, from eng to test, I have complete and open access. But from eng to prod, if you remember that search I did, it is completely blocked. So every resource is totally blocked off there. And you can click on that and it'll prove you exactly right that, nope, you have a rule here that totally blocks that out. So you can very, very quickly show what's being allowed, what's being denied through that environment. But let's say you did want to do it on a more point basis. Well, let's look at the blast radius here. I can type in any end host IP, any IP address I know about on the network. Let's just do that one again. It's going to tell me, okay, that's where it's located at. Here is every possible port, protocol, source, destination IP, even app IDs if you have those configured, that it's going to access. So this IP address that I put in can access all of these destination IP addresses on all of these ports and protocols. And of course, you can download this and give this to anybody so that if you have a breach or something that's just a little suspect, you know right away every place that that thing could possibly reach. So you can verify what the posture happens to be. So this helps me right away figure out, okay, this is what the network looks like. Here's how the traffic flows. Is it performing as I need to? So I didn't know anything about this network, and just by doing some simple searches from what we've collected, I have a good idea of how the traffic is moving and how it's flowing. So let's take the other part. Let's take that new money environment. So similar sort of stuff I'm collecting there. You see a similar sort of setup, but it's not using Palo Alto's, it's using AWS Network Firewall. So it's completely native. However, I can do the exact same things there. I've got all of my inventory here, all of my instances here. I can do those exact same searches and tell me how this traffic flows here. So if I do something similar there from eng1 new money to, let's say, prod1 new money. Now I can see how it flows here, but instead of hitting actual firewalls, it's hitting AWS network firewall and all the rules that are associated with it. So no matter how you segment your traffic, how you set up your network, we don't prescribe any particular way how your network should be engineered. We're just reflecting what you have and making it very, very quick and simple to show you everything you have here. All the same features are there, all the vulnerabilities, all the blast radius, even the security postures. And in this case, I actually have some partial level of access, so some zones have some access between different ones. So let's take this and merge them together. How do I do that? Well, all I really have to do is go over to my sources, collect those palos here, and then collect both of those networks in both of those regions. Now when I do that, now when I look on the map, you see I have a line between US West and US East. I can click on that, see that same bit of information I had before, but now I see a peering relationship between there. So they've peered the transit gateway from west to eastern. So I see that peering across regions. Going back to my dashboard, you see a bunch more instances here, the old money and the new money ones right there. So let's do some of those searches again and see exactly what's going on. So let's say I'm coming from, let's say something on old money, and let's say I'm a different engineering on new money. So it's going to show me those exact same path searches. This one looks familiar, going through that gateway load balancer. But now it shows me the peering relationship between them, and it shows me that I have connectivity between both of those regions there. Same exact thing I did before, just by adding them together. Now I know that the traffic is flowing between these two regions.
So you made the change with your application?
No, I don't. So I made the change in AWS, and the application just picked that up. Yeah, we don't make any changes. Yeah. So yeah, I went over to AWS and checked it out there. Same thing with the security posture. Now I can see between both of these environments, is the security posture correct? In this case, I don't want anyone from new money pushing to production. So I know that there are rules blocking anyone from there pushing to my production environment. Same rules that I had before from engine prod aren't allowed there. So I can give you that same level of security assurance. However, I've got some more things that I need to make sure of. So in this case, merging them together, I have some CIS benchmarks I need to verify that are on the environment. So I'm going to go take a look at the network query engine to see how that works.
Just before you jump into that section, a small point.
Sure.
Does this go down to the level of granularity of host firewalls?
Yeah, if depending on the device, yeah, we can go into and pull IP tables and things like that from Linux hosts. Yeah.
Assuming that's a client that has to be installed, or
No,
you're just
SSH. Yeah.
SSH.
Yeah, we don't do any agents or except for the initial collector. Everything we do is either API or SSH, depending on the lowest common
You would
denominator.
need to configure that for each host.
If you wanted to get down to the
Configure within the application for a global, global.
Yeah,
key
we
access.
have discovery and scanning to find things on there. So you don't have to have a good list. We can look at CDP, LLDP. We can do scans. Just log in and figure those things out. Yeah. So integrating with other sources, like I showed you here, whether it is the NIST database, looking at the larger network, I can see all of the CVE vulnerabilities. This is based on knowing the config and state, but also looking to see if I have any configurations that match those particular CVEs. But if I want to do that, do those CIS benchmarks, let's look at my network query engine here. So I'm going to go over to AWS. Actually, just do cloud. So I've got these turned on, looking at routes with invalid next hop, what Payman mentioned. See if I have default security groups, make sure that's restricting things. See if I have unfettered SSH access and RDP access. So that one here shows as failed. So what I've got here is I've got something that is allowing unfettered SSH. I can click on failed here, and this is where you can see the code of it. So this is the network query engine language right here. Now, this is a very simple SQL-like language. I can even look at the entire query here and tell you exactly what that is. Here's the entire data model. You could make changes to it. These are just CIS benchmarks that we have built in already because we found them useful. But if you needed to do something yourself, that would be pretty easy to do, showing you exactly how that's done. So in this case, I have it shows up as failed here. So what does that mean? Let's look at violations true. So it's telling me that I have a particular something on my, it looks like my firewalls here are allowing SSH from a 000. That's against the CIS policy. You can see that over in the code right here. CIS benchmark 4.1, it's not allowing that. So I need to remediate that. Well, I know exactly where it is. I'm looking in the entire environment because it's showing me exactly what's going on. So here's the security group, SG0AE. Okay.
Quick question.
Yep.
Is that able to click on it and open up the exact AWS account rather than me going to the AWS, like take me directly to the security group, or do I need to search it?
This will tell you where it is, but yeah, you do need to search it. Yeah, we do have some things that are coming to actually click and show you that, but to pull it up, whether it's SSH to a device, something like that, that's not implemented just yet, but yeah, that's something that we're considering.
I just think it's easier if you were able to click on that security
Open
group,
it up.
it opens it
Yeah.
up and I can change it right away. Now I have to go find out what account that is and log into it and find the rule.
Well, we're going to tell you what account it is, so we know what account it is, but yeah, having a clickable way, that would make it a lot easier. So SG0AE, okay, let's just go find it. There it is. And yep, what do you know? It's allowing 000. So let's fix this. So let's edit the inbound rule. So I know my collector is coming from that IP address, which is probably good. I have all sorts of people trying to SSH into this instance all the time, so probably good to not have it open up to SSH out to the internet. So let's just go ahead and correct that there. Let's say coming from, let's just put in /32. Save the rule. Okay, that's fixed. Let's take a new snapshot. So now we're going to compare between these two and see, one, did I fix this problem? And two, did it mess anything else up in the network? So it's going to go ahead and collect that. It's going out to AWS. It's going out to the firewall rules. Okay, you see it's pulling all of that up.
Quick question.
Yep.
Just to confirm, to be able to see the data, it has to go out and pull it. This is not real time.
It's not real time.
Got
no.
it. Okay.
It can be triggered by things. So it can be triggered by something, an API call for,
Yep.
or it can be part of that pipeline workflow to triggers. But yes, it's not a real time engine.
Got it.
As part of the remediation of, seeing that, the connectivity is there and you want to stop it, would it be an option, or have you guys thought of making basically this is the code to fix it in the tool, so you literally copy that, throw it into the CLI?
Yeah, having those kind of suggestions. Yeah, that's actually one of the hack weeks that we worked on, was to actually have, here's the suggestion of what you do. We don't think we're going to do we're the configurator, but here's what you should do. Yeah.
Go inspect.
Yeah, you can already make some firewall changes and do what you have there, but yeah, this is going to show you that too.
Okay.
So let's go look at that again. Now if I go over to cloud, oh, that shows up as passed. And I can even see, well, exactly what did I change? Yep, I changed that ACL right there. And if I go over to verifications, you can see this failed before and now it's passed. So now I know I've remediated. I know it's always remediated and fixed. And I know there's no other problems that I have in any of these intent verifications. So this runs every time I take a snapshot, like I showed you here. Snapshots go as far back as you need to based on our retention policy. The idea being is that this is very simple. You pull the data, it shows you what you've got. You ask simple things. You don't have to be an expert on AWS. I only started, cloud stuff about 2 years ago, and using this made me a much better cloud engineer, because when I configured something wrong or I could really, really quickly say, oh, I didn't attach this route table. I didn't do this peering correctly. It's very, very easy to figure that out about networks you know nothing about.
I had a question about the queries. What flexibility do you have within that scripting language? Can it make an HTTP call externally to pull down a list of IPs that might be allowed, or something like that? Or is it only really able to query the data that's within the system?
No. So part of what we've been doing the past, I suppose, year and a half, is integrating those external sources, whether it is an API list from a CMDB, or from maybe an end of life end of support list from a Cisco or a Juniper, or something, just a flat file you have listed there that has those IP addresses. Using that query language, we can import that in there, and then it's available to query basically in the data model. So absolutely.
And could we push data in programmatically? Or is it really a configure data source and pull data?
It's a configure data source and pull, but it pulls every time we take a snapshot. So whenever you make a change, it could be triggered.
How do I control access for people logging into Forward? So for example, if I got 5 engineers on my team and I only want them to be able to see things that are coming from this account or this VPC or whatever the case may be, is there a way to get granular like that?
Of course, yeah. So there's an RBAC model of per network, or even within the network. Like I said, we already strip out things like sensitive things like SNMP strings and things that we don't need for modeling. But yeah, you can strip it down even further. Say you can only do a path search, but you can't actually look at the firewall rules, or you can't look at the CVEs because maybe I don't want that broadcast to everybody all the vulnerabilities I have on my network. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Could you run this in like an MSP model where, as a provider, you're managing the environment for 30 or 40 smaller companies?
100%. We have customers that do that all the time. Each one would be a different network. You as the MSP would have access to all of them, and then your customers can only access their own network.
Interesting. Okay.
Do you have different roles for like security, networking? Like if you're an auditor and you just want to be able to get in and view reports and see specific things, but not be able to get to like the network mappings and all the devices that are in there, are you able to segment that?
Yeah. So the idea being, if you're a security person, you would only have access to maybe seeing the posture, putting in things to the blast radius. Of course, everything you see here is completely API accessible. We have a full Swagger model, so you can see exactly what's going on. So you could even restrict it even further just by putting a front end to it. Like several of our customers don't even, like I love our UI, but several of our customers don't even use it.
Is there any canned reports as far as compliance goes where you could spit out, I'm doing like HIPAA compliance check or other sorts of things where you could just spit that out?
Oh yeah, we have STIG reports already written. We have some HIPAA ones, the CIS ones I showed you right there. So yeah, these are ones that we've seen that are just useful, that because we have a lot of customers that have to do STIG checks all the time and they don't want to be auditing. So yeah, we have a lot of these canned ones, and we help you write them because it's not a difficult language, but we obviously have more experience. If we find something useful, we put it in the library, so these are already directly there in the product. And we're working on building a community around actually, sharing these between different customers, things like that. That's in the works right now, though.